आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So today we will begin a new topic, not an entirely new topic, but a new subtopic. So what we were doing in the last topic was to see the requirement and the importance of Atma Vichara, self-inquiry. And as you know, we said that that needs to be conducted personally and individually by each one of us. The teaching and classes and reading texts and all that is preparing you for it, but you are the one that has to really go to the final mile. So with respect to that, we had started a series of steps required for doing Atma Vichara, self-inquiry. We also saw towards the latter part of it how to do it, what needs to be done. So that was the last topic. Today we will start a new topic, which is a continuation of the last one. And I have given it a title, Gaining the Ability for Self-Inquiry. Unfortunately, the self-correcting on the iPad made it self-inquirer. So I need to figure out how to change the title. I'll ask one of the students to do it for me. I don't know. I need to figure that out. So I did inquiry, but it turned it into an inquirer. So gaining ability for self-inquiry. So what that intends to do in this topic is, even though we know what we need to do, and what we need to do, we've already discussed it, which is that a wrong identification is the reason for our problems in life. Our deep identification with the jivas, all the things that a person has, the body, mind, etc., and the world around us. And so that identification, which is very, very tightly woven and difficult to dislodge, in fact needs to be done so. If we want a total freedom, then the misidentification has to be, that identification has to be done with a misidentification. You have to remove it. And that cannot be possible until you know what the alternative is. Who are you really? And before that is clearer to you, you are not ready to give up the identification, because that's all you have at this moment. Generally the example given is that if a child let's say a 4-year-old boy, let's take that example, goes to a friend's house that has a 6-year-old boy. And the 6-year-old boy has his own Tonka trucks and toys, his favorite toys that are bigger and better than this 4-year-old. So the 4-year-old looks at them and he starts to grab at it. And so the 6-year-old one says, "You can't take that." He complains to the mother and says, "Mom, he's taking my Tonka truck. This is mine." So the 4-year-old doesn't understand what is mine, which is yours. He sees a truck and he says, I need it. I have it. I'm not going to let go of it. So there are a couple of alternatives on how to resolve this impasse. One of them is to really snatch it away from him, and then there is a huge hue and cry, and the wonderful camaraderie between the two mothers is disturbed, and there is all kinds of things. You went there to have a pleasant experience, and it is no longer pleasant. So that's one alternative. The other alternative, which is much better, is that the mother realizes that this guy, my 4-year-old, is so deeply attached to this Tonka truck. And it's so much bigger than anything that he has, more elaborate, more beautiful. There's no way I can get him to understand, to dislodge that from his psyche. So what she does is, she has a weapon which is one of the very sweetest chocolates that this 4-year-old boy is very fond of. And she puts it out and says, "Okay, if you leave this Tonka truck, which by the way is belonging to this," so she reasons it also, "that belongs to this boy, not to yours. I'll get you another one. But if you leave it, I am going to give you this chocolate instead." So now the boy weighs the two. Here's the Tonka truck and here's the chocolate. And hopefully he understands that, okay, I will give it up. He also has some idea this is really not mine. So he has some reason for doing so. So this is exactly the same situation is here with us, please understand. Because we are so deeply ingrained with our identification with our life. This is who I am. It's very difficult to do that. I was born. I've been spending decades. And whatever it is, this is me. I have problems, but everybody has problems. So what? It's we'll see. So there, if this teacher comes up and says, no, there's something better right now, then I have a hard time understanding that. But eventually, if I think more and I grow up more and become more mature, it makes sense that maybe I should give up. But that taste of the infinity has to be given first. So like the taste of the chocolate has to be given, otherwise you're not going to go for the chocolate. If the mother says, I've got some candy that I can give you, he doesn't understand what kind of a candy she's going to give me. But if there is a chocolate that the fellow has already tasted and he loves it, then he can be tempted to give up the identification with the Tonka toy. So very similar to that is really what we were going through. And this is how we need to tempt you to understand the Viveka and so on. Now, in this topic, we are going to look into how to strengthen my ability for self-inquiry. Because the reason for doing this is that even though I want to give up my identification, I don't know how to do it. You're telling me and convincing me makes sense to me. But at this point, I'm deep into my life, and just by telling me all this is not enough power in it, your words. So you need to equip me with the ability to follow through the promise that you are asking me to look at, and the promise that I want to do it myself, but I can't. I don't have the tools to do so. You know, it's kind of like sometimes I think of it as a mountain climber. You know, these cliff climbers. Incredible how 90 degrees from the ground they are able to go through the very top of the mountain. But you know what? In order to do that, you need some tools. So you need to have certain ropes, and even if you don't have ropes, at least you should have a hammer with something that really can be drilled into the holes that I can pull myself on and hang on to. And once I do that, then I take it out from the underneath and put the next one in. So there is a certain skill, a certain power involved in order to do so. Without that, you can't even attempt to do it. So something similar to that is the fact that it is very difficult for us to disengage from our own deep identity without how do I do that. So this topic is some of the tools that we need to learn, some of the power that we need to equip ourselves with in order to make progress on the self-inquiry. Even though it makes sense to me, but in practical terms, I'm unable to do that. So this is the topic called Gaining the Ability for Self-Inquiry. So what I thought I would do is to take a very detailed explanation by Swami Maheshananji on one of the verses of the Sri Rudram that he has taken up in his book. And as I read through that, after last week completing the section on how to do self-inquiry, I thought it will be a worthy successor. So first of all, what is the problem? How to solve the problem? And how to now, in this case, increase our power to solve the problem. So this is given in this very long chapter consisting of so many different talks. And I think what I'm planning to do, just to share with you, is that as you know that roughly a month from now, there is Shivaratri. And when I read through this chapter, there was a very beautiful explanation of the importance of Shivaratri in our journey, in our self-inquiry. Very beautiful. So I think that what I'm planning to do is, I'm not quite sure how many classes this section will take, the Gaining Ability for Self-Inquiry. But no matter how long it takes, I'm going to spend the Tuesday before the Shivaratri, the 1 week prior to that, somewhere around, so what is the date today? Today is the 1st, so 1st, 15th, 22nd. 22nd, I will spend specifically on explanation of Shivaratri and its importance. And it is actually an unfolding as part of this section anyway. So if we are not done with it, which I don't think we will be, we need at least 5 or 6 classes, then we will take a break for Shivaratri, and not really a break, it's all logically connected. And then we'll come back to complete this section after the Shivaratri. So that's the plan that I'm thinking of following. So as I mentioned to you, this is very conveniently explained by Swami Maheshananji in taking up this one mantra, mantra number 5 of Sri Rudram, which I think many of you already know, and I think you should learn Rudram. It's a very important one, and then we will go over the meaning of the entire Rudram at some point in time. I don't know when, but I'm just taking a section of it now. So that verse of the Rudram that we are going to base our explanation on goes as follows. And actually there are 2 versions of it. Rudram, by the way, is such an important mantra that it appears in all the sections of all the Vedas practically. There is no place else such a prevalence of the mantra is there as it in Sri Rudram. So now Swami Maheswaranji has done the following thing. He has taken the section from Krishna Yajurveda, which is what we have been studying, and Swami Dayananji's book also follows this Krishna Yajurveda. But in Swami Maheshanandaji's book, he has taken both the Krishna Yajurveda as well as Shukla Yajurveda. And there are small differences here and there. More or less it's the same, but some of the mantras are different. In this mantra, there is an extra 2 words in the Shukla Yajurveda, which I'll explain in a minute. So I just want to let you know that. So here is the verse for the Krishna Yajurveda. It says, Adhyavocha dadi vakta prathamo daivyo bhishak ahin sarvan jambhayan sarvas ahin sarvan jambhayan sarvas chayatu dhanya. This is the verse from the Krishna Yajurveda. Then in the Shukla Yajurveda, there are 2 other words that are added. It's called Dharachihi Parasuva. Dharachihi Parasuva. So there the second line is extended. First line is the same. Adhyavocha dadi vakta pratamo daivya bhishak ahin sarvan jambhayan sarvashtayatu dhanyaha parachihi parasuva. So this is the verse that Swami Maheswaranji has unfolded over several talks lasting for, I think, about 15 different talks just on this one verse. And I'm going to try to summarize it for this new topic that I have started today. That's the plan. So let's look at just the word meanings in this mantra now, and then we will try to put it together in terms of what the concepts are that we are trying to unfold. So here he says, Adhivakta. So some of the words have to be transplanted here, he said. Adhi avochat adhivakta. So adhivakta means a person with a special discourse. Vakta means the one who gives the discourse. The one who talks is called a vakta. But here it's called an adhivakta. And I'll explain what the difference is between a vakta and an adhivakta. Then prathamaha. Prathamaha means the very first one. And therefore the most worshipful one. The oldest, the eldest, and the first one. It's all about Shiva. It's about Shiva. So prathamaha, daivyaha. So daivyaha means the one who has extraordinary qualities. Divyaha. Divyaha means actually the only one who is Chaitana Swarupaha. who is the only Chaitanya Swarupa in the whole world. The rest of them are copies, but that's the original effulgent being, and also endowed with all the Devi Guna Sampatti, all the Devi Gunas, all the good qualities that makes one Devata. He is the one who is really the very originator of all these qualities, Daivyaha. Then the word Bhishak. So Bhishak means a doctor. Doctor by definition means one who removes diseases and the dukkha, the agony resulting from diseases. One who removes the disease is called a Bhishak. Here the Bhishak is the one who removes. So the Bhishaks that we have, all the doctors that we see, they are limited in their scope, even though they are very good, but they cannot solve all the problems. So there are problems for the physical body, but if the doctor for removing physical problems cannot remove mental problems, and vice versa. The psychiatrist might give you some things about the mind, but he doesn't know anything about how to fix a broken knee or a shoulder. And so their expertise are all good but limited. But here the Prathama Daivya Bhishaka is the one who can remove all problems totally. Mental, physical, emotional, psychological, given by society, all the devatas. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be adhyatmika, adidaivika or adibhuta. All tapas he can remove. Complete independence. And a sample of that is given in your deep sleep. In the deep sleep, it is a remarkable ability. So it's not as though you can say, oh my gosh, is there someone like this who can do this? I don't know is that what Ishvara can do? Hey, you can do it yourself every night. You don't even have physical problems. It may be difficult, supposing you have a broken something. You may have difficulty going to sleep, but if you go to sleep, which you will most of the time, even the pain from a broken bone will not bother you. Leave alone any psychological problems. Leave alone the fact that you have a lot of stuff to do. You owe money to IRS. Nothing. So it's a sample. And what Ishvara has is the ability to have that at all times, at all cases, permanently. So that is called the Bhishak. Then Adi Avochat. So here it means that the one who gives you Diksha. I think we have taken that word before. There is a difference between Shiksha, which is instructions, and Diksha. And so here Adi Avochat means one who is capable of giving you Diksha. But this is a very important thing that we have to really grasp as we study Vedanta. What do you mean by Diksha? So, very briefly, Diksha means not only the instructions, not only the experience, but the way to get the experience. The direction you have to go, what you need to do, that kind of a shiksha is called Diksha. So the one difference is, for example, Shiksha means, supposing you're saying, do you know where Starbucks is? So you ask somebody, do you have nowadays, of course, you have your cell phone and you can ask, hey, Google, where is the nearest star? It's interesting how I said that, and the cell phone says, hi, how can I help? So if you have Siri, you can say that also. Hey Siri. So supposing you ask somebody, hey, where is Starbucks? And the guy says, oh, it's right there. So you can see that. You see that one over there? So this is called Shiksha. But suppose the Starbucks is not that close by. You have to go through maybe a couple of miles before you can get there. Then a good person can give you directions that are very followable. He says, okay, I think I know where it is. Here's what you do. Which way is your car pointed? And says this way. Okay, good. You're already pointed in that direction. Take the first left and cross the traffic light and then make a right turn. And then on the very first light, you have to make a left and it will be on your right hand side. Some complicated thing like that. And then, so this is called Diksha. So Diksha means you don't see it right away, but if you follow my directions, you will get there. They call Diksha. So this direction of life is very important because as we have been discussing, and even if we have not been discussing, we should know that for almost all of my life I have been following either wrong directions or I have been going around directionless. So studying Vedanta is like getting a Diksha and says, listen, here's where you need to go. And we'll discuss this. This is one of the main topics we're going to go. You have to turn towards in this direction in order to gain happiness. How do you get there? It's a little complex. Actually, it is very simple, but you won't accept it as very simple. As we saw in the study of Kena Upanishad, means that really all your experiences are only there because of you. Pratibodhitam matam. Bodham pratimodham pratimatam. Every experience, every thought cannot be without you being there. So every thought refers to you. You cannot miss it. This is how simple it is. But we say, oh really? I know, what, me, how? We have all these complicated questions. So that Diksha is given by the Adi Avochat. So here, Swami Maheshananji says that the Adhivochat means not only the Avochat means the one who has told me. This is the past sense of Vach. Avochat. Vakta is from the same Vach, to speak. One who has not only shown me the Diksha, Marga, a way, but he teaches me. It's like somebody who says, okay, it's a little complex to go to this Starbucks, so let me, do you have a paper and pencil? Or just here, just let me have it. He explains that to it. This is really what all these directions in the phone nowadays do. So beautiful, really. And we can really forget because everything is dependent on the phone. So that teaching of the Diksha is also done by Shiva. So not only the sadhana, but the sadhana pratipadana. It's called sadhana pratipadana. Pratipadana means clear explanation. And of course the sadhana ends in being sadhya. It reaches, it makes you reach there. That's the meaning of the adhyavochat. Then the second line, that is the first line. Adhyavochadadi vakta prathamo daivyo bhishak. If you have a copy of Sri Rudram, then kindly go there, or you can just Google it on the web somewhere if you don't have a copy of Rudram, and you can just see this verse and see how it is. Then the second line is ahinscha sarva jambhayanscha sarvanscha yatu dhanyaha. This is a very interesting combination of words. Ahimscha. Ahim means a snake. A serpent is called ahi. And all the snakes, so we'll go into this. What do you mean by how come snakes are in this verse? Ahimscha sarvan jambhayanscha. So jambhayans means and ahim and all the other similar kind of problems are obstacles to my understanding. How they are an obstacle, this we will see as we deal with the explanation of it. But so here's the thing. This is interesting to appreciate. Even when I understand something somewhat, not completely but somewhat, and it's very encouraging for me to pursue this direction, there can be obstacles that prevent me from reaching it fully, grasping it fully. So, this is exactly what Vedanta says. Vedanta says that if you're not able to see something, it is not because there is a defect in your eye. It's not as your eyes are defective. So this is the good news. The good news is you go to a doctor and says, "Doctor, I am having trouble seeing something. I can't see. Have my eyes deteriorated? Am I having a disease or what? Can you look at it?" So he spends a lot of time, asking you, "Can you read this? Can you read that?" and so on. Here Swami Dayanandji used to make such a joke out of this. He says, when I first came to this country, when I met him, all his students said, "Swamiji, one very good advantage here is that the Americans here have such advanced technology that really they are able to diagnose our problems much better than Indians, because we have not really have that technology in our medical science, this, that, and the other." Swamiji said, "Well, that's wonderful." So they said, "Swamiji, before you go back, you must get yourself thoroughly checked up. And we will take you to the best doctors, we'll get all the tests done, so you're in excellent health by the time you go back to India." Swamiji said, "Oh, wow, that's wonderful. I didn't come for that. I just came to teach Vedanta, but if you say that's good." So one of the things they all said, "Swamiji, what are the problems you're having?" So Swamiji said, "Well, my vision is not as sharp as it used to be." And so they said, "Oh, we have some very good ophthalmologists in this area, and we will have you look at it," and so on. So Swamiji said, "I was so relieved. Wow. They will tell me exactly what is wrong with my eye, and I will just do that, and I am so lucky. Swamiji says, I went into the doctor. It was, I don't know if it was an optometrist, I think it was an ophthalmologist. And so Swamiji says, I sat there like this, and the doctor, we said, okay, can you read the second line? And Swamiji said, second line, Z, T, oh, okay. How about the third line, one below that? Swamiji said, oh, that one I don't think I can see very well. So he says, okay, doesn't matter. Okay, now I'm going to change the astigmatism setting. So now try this. Is it better than the old one, or is it low? Swamiji says, after a while I began to say, I am telling the doctor which one is better. The doctor is not seeing anything. I am the one that has to tell them, what difference does it make? I thought that I would just sit there with my eyes closed, or maybe just open like this without any blinking, and they will figure out exactly what my eyes are. He says, I was so disappointed that I have to tell them no. And Swamiji says, I came out with a complete doubt. Was the number 2 better or the number 1 better? Maybe I should go back and tell them. So anyway, if you go to a doctor and say, doctor, I cannot see very well, the doctor will actually examine this, hopefully with your help and so on, and then give you the good news. The good news is there is nothing intrinsically wrong with your eyes. You just have a obstruction on top of it that can be easily removed. So this is the importance of obstacles. Understanding obstacles is very crucial in Vedanta. Because Vedanta says that you as a person has none of the problems that you are experiencing. This is the diagnosis that Vedanta does, just like an ophthalmologist. This is the good news. I know that you feel you have problems. I understand that very well. But all I am here to tell you is that the nature of the problems is not generic to you. It's a covering on top of that can be removed. So this is this is what is typified by ahimcha sambhayan jambhayan. We'll go into the exact meaning some other time, hopefully. And then yatu dhanyaha. So yatu dhanyaha. Here in Swami Dayananji Saraswati's book, Yatu Dhanya are spirits and ghosts that can attack me from any place. This is the way he has taken, and technically that's maybe the right translation. Here, however, Swami Maheshananji has taken a slightly different meaning to it. The effects are the same. These are all obstacles of one form or the other. But he has taken the meaning that these are misguided siddhis that people go for. So as you begin to study, you develop certain powers that can be misused. These are called siddhis. And in fact, it's interesting that if you look at this is in our Puranas and Purana literature and so on, this is very common. And the common thing is the difference between Devas and Asuras. So these are the Rakshasas, the very bad people who Asuri buddhi have. Asuri buddhi means that they have just they're terrible people. They delight in troubling others and killing others. And then you have the Devas, who are the purest of the people. Okay, these are the two people. All the conflict is always going on. Even in this life also you see there are people on both sides. One who cannot but be bad and one who cannot be but be good. You see this, and a combination of those. So here it is written in our Puranas, and even in the Ramayana the same thing happens. Both Rama, who was of course a devata, and Ravana, who was an asura, were Shiva Bhaktas. Both of them were Shiva Bhaktas. And if anything, they said that the Ravana was a more devout Shiva Bhakta than Rama. And he had gathered such powers to himself. The difference was that Rama's ahankara had been totally gone. That's this minus, this is me. And this is exactly what we are trying to do, is to remove this superego that I am responsible for my life, I am doing everything. This is me. As we will study this in more detail, what we need to understand it is easily Ishvara, the Antaryami, who is making you do things. And a student of Vedanta begins to understand that. And as you understand it, and this is exactly what we're going to be studying, you really take on the power of Ishvara including the fact that you become independent. You are not beset by the problems. So this is what the marga, the way for devata is. Asura, on the other hand, is also given powers, but instead of reflecting that of the Ishvara, it strengthens the ego even more and becomes very powerful and destroys things and is difficult to defeat. It takes Rama to defeat Ravana. It is not easy. Why? Because all the power of the bhakti towards Shiva is misused. It becomes very powerful. And so there's the description of Lanka, the place where he used to live, is just how much power he had. It's something like Hitler. How powerful he began. What a bad person he was. So something like that. So even now we have these. This is not just Puranic stories, that these are now here also. So that kind of an attitude is also called Yatudhanya. So this is the interpretation of Swami Maheshananji. And so anyway, all of this was given there. So the meaning of this verse, in fact, you know what? I will read the English translation of this mantra from Swami Dayananji's book, which is from the Krishna Yajurveda. So this is the one about Adyavocha Dadi Bhakta Pratamo Daivyo Bhishak, etc. He says, may that Lord who stands by his devotees, that was given in earlier. So no, in this verse itself, may that Lord who stands by his devotees, who is the foremost, Prathamaha, who dwells as the inner self of devas, Daivyaha, who removes the diseases of samsara. Bhishak, right? That's the who removes the diseases of the samsara means Bhishak, the doctor. And who destroys all snakes and so on that harm from the front, and all spirits and so on that harm from behind. May you espouse my cause. Adi avochat. Adi avochat here means, may you take my side. May you become my friend. This is the definition of this verse. Okay? So I'm just going step by step on explaining the gaining the ability of the self-inquiry. I've not forgotten the main idea behind it. Okay. So now we begin the inquiry into what needs to be done. In doing so, we should recognize one thing. I might as well just give you the headline first, which is nothing new. We have already talked about it, but in the context of this topic, it should be front and center. We should really understand this very well, and which is the following. My engagement and my identification with the world that I see, which is not Atma, but a reflection of the Atma, which is also not Atma, but the Atma's working with, so remove those words, not Atma. So I would say it is not, so the electricity and the appliance example should be given. So here, even though I see the presence of electricity in the appliance, which makes it do something, the Shakti of the electricity is very powerful. Shakti means the power of the electricity is very powerful. It can really do a number of things. It can heat, it can cool, it can light up, all kinds of things it does. But the electricity has that power, but it never changes by itself. You see? So it's not as though that the appliance can make changes in the electricity. Without changing itself, it has the ability to express its power in various ways. So, supposing you are the electricity, that's the example I wanted to give of the Atma. So let me explain it that way. So supposing your Swarupa, your reality, your truth, your tattva is electricity in this example. Suppose powerful, unchanging ability to do a number of, to empower a number of different appliances. This is you. But suppose instead of knowing that you are independent, you enjoy your involvement with the various appliances. You see yourself as an applied electricity. is exactly what is happening to us. That we are used to and only seeing ourselves in the applied way I am going about the world. But my looking at myself as part and parcel of the appliances means my own self, my body, my senses, my eyes, and my involvement with the various things around me. This is what the appliances, this is the application of this very sophisticated appliance. This is what's happening. And now I'm involved with it. And because I am totally involved in appreciating myself as an appliance, I fail to see the truth about myself as the electricity. So the central theme, really the central theme of Vedanta itself, and as well as this topic that we are going to be looking into in more detail, is, can you please see the mistake you are making? And can you please turn your attention to the pure you, not the applied you? If I can make up, these are my words, but they are taken from in the context. Pure view, unadulterated electricity, as opposed to the applied me, which is part and parcel of, you see a fan moving and you say, wow, I can make that fan move. You see a light and you say, I can make that bulb glow. And you are enjoying. This is exactly what is happening, fine, by the way. These are not just, so what happens is that you see I'm a teacher. I'm teaching classes. And I'm a grandfather. I've got some grandkids. And I'm a resident of this such and such place. And I have a car. And so you are really enjoying your own presence in all these applied places. And in doing so, I'm so busy from morning to evening, just one thing or the other. And if there are problems with it, then I just solve it as much as I can, but I keep on going. And I have no occasion to really look into the self-enquiry as to who I am. And if Vedanta says you are one which is a Sakshi, which is never born, that seems like a far-fetched kind of an idea. I'll have to look into that later, but right now I'm very busy. So this is the vision of the Anatma. So the applied Atma is Anatma, and the pure Atma is the Atma. The pure Atma is Paramatma, Parameshwara, Ishvara. And I need to turn my attention from Anatma to Parameshwara. You can't even say to, sometimes I think even it's better to do it this way. If you say whenever you say self-enquiry, I don't know, these are my feelings, that one of the reasons why the self-enquiry doesn't seem as powerful as it should be is because immediately when I start thinking about the self, I start thinking about a small self, just myself, not anybody else's self. So in doing so, I I miss the power of Parameshwara, of Paramatma. I just look at it as Jivatma, not Paramatma. So my power gets limited, even my thinking. This is why a appreciation of Paramatma, of Ishvara, is so important. Sometimes I feel that I'm just on my own, and it may last for a while, but it's not going to persist. Sooner or later, my own problems start to bring me down. But if my inquiry is towards Parameshwara as myself, you see, that's the thing. Not me as a Parameshwara. End result is the same. But I allow the magnanimity and the power of Parameshwara to be looked into. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going into some detail on that. But at this moment, just to summarize what we are going to be following, is my direction towards the Anatma and my direction towards the Atma. This is what needs to be done. And one needs to be given up and the other one needs to be taken up. Enquiry at this point. We have not even talked about attainment. I'm just talking about the diksha, which direction I should go. Now we will see all of that as we go along. So in starting this whole inquiry, or this way of explaining, here Swami Maheshananji pointed out, please look at one thing. Briefly look at the limitations of your examining yourself as an appliance. Examining yourself as intricately involved with Anatma. Please do so. So one way is, see, he's pointed out different ways of doing that. So just look at one way. He says we are so involved with making progress in the outside world. So as an example, we could see that we look upon the underdeveloped countries versus the developed countries, whose scientific and materialistic progress has been very impressive. And we are involved with all those comparisons and contrasts. India is a poor country, America is a very rich country, etc., etc. This is how we think. We need to ask ourselves, it is true that America is richer than India, as an example. The question is, are you happier? Does it matter whether it is richer or not? And I'm just giving an example of a comparison between two countries. Look at it another way. If you look at just one country progressing, has that progress translated into joy? generally, the most of the time, the answer will be no. Yes. So have dukkha resulting from obvious issues like cold and heat. You have now heaters, you have air conditioners, so some of the bodily dukkhas, etc., will be less. But if you look at the integrated whole as a life, is it any better? And I think that if you really are sincere and loyal to purity, you will find it is not. It is not. We all have, we get involved in some ideas. Like, for example, our feeling was that India was under the reign of the Britishers. We were slaves to the Britishers for so long, for 200 plus years, that we really wanted independence. And our thinking was that once we get independence, oh my God, we're going to be so happy, and we will just do the way things we want to do instead of being the slaves of the British. Has that happened? It has not. We were miserable even before, and we are, if anything, more miserable even now. Swami Dayanandji once gave an example. I still vividly remember this. Again, going back to the very first trip that he made when he came here in 1975. And so when he went back to India, everybody was quizzing him and says, Swamiji, so how was your experience? Tell us about the Americans and who you talked to, and how are they, and how did they respond to you, and all of those kinds of discussions took place. Swamiji says, I told them that in India we are uncomfortably miserable, and in America they are comfortably miserable. That's the only difference that I can see. So it's something like this. So he says here, the world is the anatma, the world, samsara, anatma is all the same thing, is incapable of giving you the kind of sukha that you want. It fools you into thinking that I'm going to give you some sukha. But in the end it doesn't. And on the other hand, if you turn towards Shiva, Shankara, Parameshwara, Paramatma, even a small degree of reaching towards that gives you amazing sukha. One example that he gave, very interestingly enough, is that suppose you have been a citizen of a country, and for almost your entire life you have been a good citizen. You have really paid your taxes, you have not really gotten mad at your neighbors, you have really behaved yourself, and this is the way you have been. You have really accumulated a lot of punya in your life by doing things the right way. But it so happens that one time, due to some anger or some emotional upheaval in your life or something, you did something bad. Whatever it was. You got into a fight, you beat up somebody, or you cheated or something. Now, the society and the anatma doesn't take a holistic view of your life. By that it is meant that it doesn't integrate all the 99% times where you were very good citizens. But that one time where you were not is now singled out as something which is very defective. And even now, when someone is given a punishment, there is some of the judges, not all, but some of the judges will look at your past behavior and perhaps give you some better treatment, relatively speaking, but they still punish you. Nobody can go to someone and say, out of 100 such incidences, 99s were okay and one of them was bad, so we need to weigh it that manner. No. It focuses on your defects rather than your strengths. This is the nature of the anatma, samsara. The nature of Ishvara, God, is just the opposite. Just the opposite. Why? How is it just the opposite? You may have been doing bad things all your life. You may be a mahapapi. But if you turn towards Ishvara once, remorsefully, sincerely, truthfully, then all the 99% of your previous papas are forgiven right away. This is the nature of the Prabhu. So Shankara, Shiva, is also called Ashutosha. The word Ashutosha is used for him. Ashutosha means one who is easily pleased. Easily pleased. This is the power of turning towards Parameshvara. So you see what I'm saying here? So look at this. I'm using the word Parameshvara here and I'm going to continue to do so. I can tell you that in my life also, that once I really adopted that methodology, I have made progress. What methodology? Instead of simply looking at myself as the pure self and so on, that comes much later. But you need to really turn towards Parameshvara. And how my life can be turned around by my appreciating the power of Parameshvara, which is expressing through me. So I have replaced the word Atma with Paramatma in my thinking. Even though I am not yet clear about the Paramatma, but I'm getting there. You see, that's what my point is this. Just simply looking at it as Atma, Anatma, Viveka, and so on and so forth is not as powerful as appreciating the power of Parameshvara expressing through me. And we will go into this. I'm just giving you the thesis, the very title of the thesis. Because the title of this topic, the main topic here is the ability to do Atma Vichara. How to do Atma Vichara, we have finished. You do Panchaposha Viveka, all of that, we have done it already. And we are going to adopt it. It's not as though it's now abandoned. No. We will continue to adopt it as part of it. But the main focus is the ability, and I'll give you the Sanskrit word for it, which Swami Maheshananji has pointed out, is called Samarthyam. So Samartha means capable. Samartha means capable. Am I capable of doing the Atma Vichara? So Samartha means capable, and Samarthyam means capability. So capable is an adjective, whereas capable is a noun, but the capability is the generic sense of that capable. So Samarthyam. So if I were to relabel this in Sanskritam, it will be Atma Vichara Samarthyam. This is what we are focused in on. How do we gain the Samarthyam from it? Okay, so this is the direction we are going. Okay, now let's go a little bit further in the next few minutes. So let's look at the word now, Adhivakta. Adhivakta. So we've gone through the word meaning there before, but now let's look at the explanation of the word Adhivakta. And all of this is in reference to Parameshwara. You see, this is the thing, I'm just telling you that when you do Atma Vichara, it is not just simple Atma, Anatma Vichara, which is there. But we have to bring in Parameshwara into this whole thing. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So now let's look at the word Adhivakta from this context of Parameshwara, not just Atma. So we know from... so let's look at the word Adhivakta. What is a Vakta? Vakta means one who is expressing something that one sees and he's pointing it out to you. He says, hey, look at that, look at those people in that area. Look at those people. I think they are from our town, because I think that something like that, you can say. This is called a Vakta. So you're pointing it out directly with your finger. So this is called Pratyaksha. Or you can say the following. Supposing you're walking around somewhere and you see this happened to us, my wife and I. It was so wonderful. We were where were we? I think we were in Paris. And suddenly the bus let out some people, and the women were wearing saris. So my wife and both smiled, and he says, they're from either India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, one of those three countries that the women wear saris. So this was a reasonable guess. We didn't talk to them or anything, but from a distance we could tell these are from India. So this is a person who's talking like that is called a Vakta. Okay? But Adhivakta is one where Pratyaksha and Anumana is not possible. Is not possible. The one who is able to reveal something which is not an object of direct perception or a reasonable idea about it through Anumana is called Adhivakta. So the Paramatma is an Adhivakta. Why? Because he reveals something about yourself which is not directly perceptible. So it is a special Vakta. He does it through Tattvamasi, through Lakshana Vakyas, which we will see in more detail as we study it. But this is the study of the power, the Samarthya of Parameshwara that we must appreciate in order for me to become capable of doing Atma Vichara. This is the topic that we are studying. So with that, we will actually look at next week how words reveal things, and why is it that the Lakshana Vakya is used, not a direct one, but an Adhivakta is used, and how I can look into that for my own benefit to improve my samarthyam, my capability of doing self-inquiry. So this direction we will follow in the next few weeks. So with that, I close the class. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Very nice to see you all. So the question from Balamani, can one turn to Ishvara to get the help to know the Atma? Yes, of course. In fact, not can, you have to. This is the whole thesis that we are doing. It's not something we can do ourselves. And there's an interesting analogy to that. We will actually, on this topic, we're going to study this more. But since you've asked, I will just answer that. So, the extracting myself from samsara is likened to be extracting myself from, what would be the English of, in Hindi we have a word for a very loose soil called daldal, where it is it's almost on the banks of the river, and it is so muddy that You cannot have your feet touch the solid ground underneath. So if you are stuck in this muddy field called daldal, I think there is an English word for that, it's not coming to me. You cannot do it yourself, because one of the qualities of the daldal is that the more you put your foot down, the deeper you sink into it. So the only way for you to extract yourself is to take the help of someone who is on a solid ground, who extends a stick to you, perhaps, or a branch of a tree or something, and pulls you out. That person is not in the daldal, but he is capable of taking you out of the daldal, because you yourselves, the more you do it, the more you cannot extract yourself from it. So this is the analogy given. So not only can get the help of Ishvara, but you have to get the help of Ishvara. Without that, you cannot do so. And the Ishvara in the form of an adhivakta. Only in the form of an adhivakta. So this is very appropriate to what we are studying. That only someone who is, and another analogy to this given is that you would like to see yourself as an okay person. Your face is just an example. But you cannot see the face yourself. You have to take the aid of a reflecting surface. You cannot do it yourself. So the Adhivakta actually does that. Vedanta, Ishvara's words, will say, hey, what are you talking about? Why are you you're so immersed in this daldal, which is the samsara. Come out of it. Yeah, so that's how that is. Jaya Chaudhary is writing something. Daldal is a big marsh, something like a marshy land. You have a bog. Yeah, you're bogged down. I guess that's probably a good word. A bog, you're bogged down. So the word bog must be something to do with explanation of daldal. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about. I can't get the exact word. All right. So glad to see you all. Wonderful. I think we will have a lot of fun. And then I'm hoping that we will have a full session devoted to Shivaratri on the 22nd. And then we can hopefully, if possible, depending upon how the Omicron is doing, we can celebrate Shivaratri in one of the temples. Sanatana Dharma most probably. I'll check with the temple people there, what there is, or wherever you are, in Livermore or something. So to celebrate Shivratri would be special. If we have the background on what it means, how important it is for our sadhana. So this month we will move towards that and have a special session on the 22nd devoted to Shivaratri. Okay, so that's the plan. All right, very good. So yeah, so Virendra Singh also says Daldal is bog. Mire, yes, mired in it. All those are good words. Absolutely. Okay, very good. So with that, I close the class. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hari Om.